So we have seen a little bit of a bounce within the crypto markets as well as the stock market. That was over the course of yesterday. And the question remains now, should you be selling into this bounce or can you trust it? Is this the start of a recovery? We'll talk about this and a whole lot more in today's show. Smash the like button, hit the bell notification and subscribe to the channel. First things first, part of the reason why we started to see this bounce yesterday was number one, well, crypto is highly correlated to whatever the stock market is going to do. And with this whole trade wars thing heating up, of course, there is some volatility coming into traditional markets as well, right? So point number one, we started to see the stock market bouncing yesterday. And point number two, we had David Sachs, who's the crypto czar, who announced that he's going to be speaking, right? So as written over here in the Discord, degens are clutching onto any possible bit of hopium that at least his speech later on, which is now set for today, should come out really good. And then we had point number three, which came out, the market also liking this, Trump coming out on his Truth Social network saying he spoke with President of Mexico and very friendly conversation, blah, 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 basically deploying 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border to defend it from, illegal immigrants as well as any sort of illegal substances crossing the border from Mexico into the US. The market enjoyed that, right? So we started to see a little bit of a bounce. You can see the stock market looking okay over there on the weekly scale. Daily is still close, so we'll see when the stock market opens later today. If you look at crypto, though, a couple of coins up, some down, very volatile going on the hourly. We were pushing up earlier this morning, now coming back down. So we'll have a look at some of the at least lower time frames. And I guess part of the reason for all of this would be because now, again, China has just come in and saying they're going to impose 10 to 15% tariffs on US oil, agricultural equipment, coal, and LNG, right? So that's part of the reason why if you did see your crypto portfolio bouncing last night and it's coming back down again, it's because of that. But if you focus on the technicals, well, we said there will probably be a trading range that will be established following a move like this, right? Following mass liquidations. And the fear and greed index, according to this, has now spiked. Could this be correct? Let's just quickly get back to original time. So spiked back to 72. You let me know in the comments whether you believe this or not. Are you back into the greed zone? You as a viewer and market participant, do you feel greed right now? I mean, I beg to differ. I do not think that this is a very accurate signal. So we have been looking at the funding rates. And what I will tell you is that the funding rates went very negative yesterday into extreme fear, right? So following one of the biggest liquidation events ever, let's take a quick look at the stock market. You could see NASDAQ, the tech stocks, which was earlier pretty heavily hit, also putting in a bit of a bounce there. Dow Jones still holding up really nicely. And on the top left over here, we have the S&P 500 still just chopping about. Coinbase came back down to some of those key levels, hitting that, testing it as support over there. So we'll see if that can hold. And then still, for any of you Tesla bulls out there, again, there is a possibility, there is a real possibility that this is a deviation. Previously, when I highlighted this chart to you, I spoke about the yellow line and how you'd really want to defend above that. And you can see you've started to wick a couple of times below that level, which it opens up the possibility that you may slowly bleed out into this, right? So if we could see continuation from the crypto market and simultaneously have Tesla coming down into the fair value gap over here, that could be a future trade which you could put onto your watch list as a great transition from profit taking out of crypto and moving into something like Tesla for the longer term. So I do have eyes on this chart as well as a potential. We have the DXY, which is still trying to break down from this level. If you expand this chart at the end of the day, this is high highs and high lows in the short term. But in terms of the Fibonacci levels, well, firstly, we broke this upsloping trend line, which has been an aggressive trend to slow the momentum down. And now you're trying to fail at the golden pocket, that being the yellow box over here between the 0.65 and 618, right? So we'll see if the dollar can start to break down over here. This typically helps crypto. And then I'll line that up with the USDT dominance chart, which I'm going to show you in a moment, where we have a massive swing failure, which is exactly what we wanted to see on the daily time frame. That could be a little bit of hopium, but it will take time. Just to be clear, it will take time to confirm back into the range and then eventually break down below some of those lower targets that we had, right? So as per this tweet over here, when you see these record liquidations, which we've spoken about, remember, yesterday was over $2 billion worth of liquidations, but you actually had the CEO of Bybit who came out and showcased how, they limit the API feed, which they're providing to places like CoinGlass who at least report on these data feeds. That's where they're getting the API data. And they said that, Bybit alone only reported $333 million worth of liquidations, but they actually had 2 billion, which means that the real figure, the closer number, was actually somewhere between 8 and 10 billion. So around a factor of 5 times higher than what CoinGlass was recording in terms of the total liquidations. What that basically means is that this would have been the biggest liquidation event that we saw yesterday, bigger than what we saw with the FTX collapse and the COVID crash combined, right? Both those liquidation events combined in terms of a nominal value of how much money was wiped out of the crypto markets. Now, what you typically see, as per this tweet over here, is record liquidations always mark the bottom, as the market is designed to transfer wealth from the over leverage to the patient buyers and don't give the former a chance to buy any lower again. Once they capitulate at the bottom, you never get another chance to get back. Now, the question is, what is going to be that catalyst that would create some sort of a V-shaped recovery? Because right now, it definitely doesn't look like there's going to be anything V-shaped out of here. It looks like we're going to continue to chop for a long period of time, and alts are going to continue to bleed. That's what it looks like. But one thing I can tell you is that in the prior times, because I was there over both occasions, when you had the March collapse over there, that led to a V-shaped recovery because they obviously did money printing on steroids with heavy QE. Many of you who are watching over here were probably some of those beneficiaries who received those paychecks that you probably just whacked straight into the crypto markets or into any market to speculate. Where the FTX collapse, well, once the low was put in, that was more a chop period, right? There was consolidation, went down to 15,500, price chopped about between 15.5 and, around about 18, and then started to oscillate back down towards 16, and it formed this massive trading range, but we never took out that wick low. So the question is, which one of these is going to follow next, right? Now, if we do take out those lows, especially on the altcoins, that becomes incredibly worrisome, because then, yes, in fact, you could start to at least entertain the idea that we've ended the cycle early and it was a left translated lackluster cycle, which I do not subscribe to, just so you guys know. I think that's incredibly unlikely. And in fact, my plan remains exactly the same. The plan is this, right? Here's your monthly scale chart. We drew this out. We said looking for a big February, possibly push into March, maybe even extend it into April, putting in some sort of a top between 120 and 140,000. When risk returns, it returns very, very quickly. So it's very hard to give you a pinpointed exact price point, but we've lined it up with the timing factors, and I still subscribe to that happening. And then we probably have some sort of profit taking where now people think that that truly was the exact top of the cycle and it's all over, and then maybe reaccumulate somewhere between, between May, June, July, and then you go send it again to finish the cycle timing-wise exactly with what we've seen previously. When you study something like the RSI, not that it has to repeat in exactly the same way every single time, but we haven't even crossed that 80 mark. This should be supporting evidence to suggest to you, alongside things like using timing cycles to anchor from the bottom of each cycle and how long it took before you reach the top of the end of that cycle, as well as anchoring from the halving point of the cycle, where the halving, where Bitcoin's mining reward divides into the halving event, and you use that as an anchor point and measure to the end of the cycle. What you'll find is that it will line up very, very well with what you're seeing in terms of the euphoric phases for Bitcoin, in terms of when the RSI on the monthly scale reaches up into these critical territories, most notably above the 80 mark, and we haven't seen that, right? So if the cycle were to suddenly just be over from this point, well, this would kind of be a failed cycle. It would be very, very uncharacteristic, which is obviously entirely possible, but very unlikely with very, very low probabilities. So therefore, the plan remains the same. Bitcoin still looks strong over here. Could it sweep lower? Could it go down to $78,000, hitting the 50% level? Absolutely, that's still possible. But I can't necessarily foresee that altcoins will go any lower than yesterday's lows. That seems to me like that was the capitulation candle specifically for the altcoin sector, especially when you line up things like Bitcoin dominance and you look at the big wick towards the upside. also putting in a potential swing failure pattern, right? So as it currently stands, support has held. We've outlined for weeks how this is a critical level at $89,000. If you lose that, you're talking about 85K next as major support. And thereafter, you're looking at your 50% level at about $78,000, just to keep, that in the back of your mind's eye. Now, if you look at the short-term bubble risk, well, we've reset completely back into where Bitcoin has historically been in buy zones, right? Coming into that 1 to 1.25. In fact, you actually expect that the cycle will top somewhere between 1.75 and above 2, right? And we haven't even seen one single print of 1.75 or above within this crypto cycle, right? We've had brief periods where we reached into the 1.5 to 1.75, where we put in the top at 74K and corrected for 8 months. And then the second time was now when Bitcoin went to $98,000. And then we've put in this correction, which again supports the fact that you are probably going to be in a much longer cycle, a right translated cycle that will finish later on in this year, right? So I maintain still the same stance over here. Everything is just pretty much reset over here, and we'll have a look at how things have reset in just a moment in terms of where the altcoins RSIs are, right? So daily exchange volume, well, we need to see this tick up. Definitely, we'll keep maintaining and monitoring this. Let's actually do a quick reset over here just to make sure that we have the 4th of Feb data. I think it only comes out in a few hours' time. So for those of you on Discord, I'll make sure to make a post later for you to see, are we maintaining that upward posturing? Now, some very positive signs, good signs, big move, strong move from Bitcoin, closed back above the point of control. The white line running across the screen was the point where the volume of this trading range was its absolute highest at 98,000. Let's just double check that. 97,828. Price happened to push back above, close pretty much exactly at that level, and we're back above the high volume node, showing that this is major support, right? Also, on top of this volume over here, big green buy volume over here, showing that there was massive demand for Bitcoin at this level, bulls holding up. Now, of course, the reason that we look at Bitcoin is because Bitcoin will drive the rest of the market. Of course, some of the altcoins will be in worse off shape, having lost their main range levels, but Bitcoin as the predominant index will drive the overall market. So all in all, that's looking good. And believe it or not, there is still possibility, as long as prices keep closing above these candles on the left-hand side on a closing basis, this is still the possibility of creating a higher low, right? So the question was, is this a trading range, which we said is the most likely case because markets naturally range more than they trend? Or are we possibly starting a new trend, at which point you would expect to break the lower high and lower low structure, which we did. We put in a low, you then put in a higher high, and now we're simply on the higher low hunt, right? So closing back above the mid-range of the overall trading range over here, plus above the high volume area, plus closing candles higher than these last candles down here, which means you do still have the possibility of a higher low forming on the daily time frame. And the real action begins if you break above the top of the trading range. So very much range bound over here. Everything looks fine. Bitcoin-wise, altcoins, yes, got heavily smashed, right? Now, you have the spike up over here, the swing failure pattern breaking back below some of these very, very key levels, right? We have this downsloping trend line where some of these previous wick highs were formed, closing back inside over there, closing back around this resistance level. We need to see acceptance gained underneath this key resistance level over here for Bitcoin. If we do get that, this could have been the trap. It was a over-exaggerated trap. I did expect a trap, but I didn't expect it to be this severe, to be totally honest with you guys. I expected it to be, possibly pushing towards about 4.6 as opposed to pushing as high as almost 5% on the USDT dominance. So if we can gain acceptance back into this level, you can see the market swing in the opposite direction very, very quickly, with many of those who capitulated chasing price with their tail between their legs, FOMO buying price back up. And that's sometimes what creates those massive drops, right? The flood of capital will quickly move into other sectors. On the other end of the coin, we have to, of course, consider what some of the bearish outcomes would be, which is acceptance gain, multiple candle closes, continuously closing above some of these levels. I would fully expect that price should have a 1 or 2 more spikes back up here and touch some of this wick, filling that inefficiency, which would be equal to what your next higher low would be on the low time frames, right? So as this spikes up, prices will come down in cryptos. That will form probably your next high low. And then if that rejects over there, that becomes the next opportunity. So base case we said was the white line. Next probable after the base case being the white line, we would then look towards the yellow line, and very unlikely, I said, is going to be the orange line. So we'll actually put that in a light color over there, and maybe we'll make it a dotted line to make it just light and faint since it's the least likely. And then we can expand this one over here to 4 points and say, well, this is the most likely outcome, right? So you might chop about over here within this trading range, and then we'll monitor this as time goes by to see if we're actually going to get a breakout. Now, everybody will, of course, be looking towards the 200-day moving average as well as the 200-day EMA, which is around that CME futures gap, which is it's slightly above the futures gap, which is $77,000. The 200 EMA is coming in at 78,000, so about 1,000 above that, right? A lot of traders will have their limit orders over there. The question is, will market makers send price there, or they're done with their flush? Because this has been a pretty manipulated move. There was evidence and proof of that, which we showcased yesterday. So therefore, ultimately, will market makers give another opportunity for price to go below this wick? Well, as per this tweet over here, in the historical times, has been incredibly unlikely. The chances are you probably play out something similar to what happened in November 2022, where price ultimately plays out that trading range, which we can go to. Actually, I'll showcase it over here. If you look at that FTX low, then you can see, of course, you put in the low, and what happens over here, price comes back, revisits into that area, chopping, and then a couple of weeks later, you do start to mark up. You may see something similar to that, as opposed to what we saw back in 2020, which I think is less likely, would be the V-shaped recovery. The only way that we get this is if the Fed literally comes out in some sort of an emergency conference and says, we're printing money at mass, right? We want our markets to go up, which is unlikely, less likely, right? Total cryptocurrency market cap still holding up here, looking okay. Of course, you want that wick to now be defended. You do not want to come back below. We're still on a closing basis. If you simply just move this onto a line chart to eliminate the noise, you're simply consolidating, creating an order block, which these order blocks tend to lead to the next big moves, right? I've showcased these order blocks to you guys multiple times on the shows over the course of this bull run and how they form. You consolidate, that price consolidation shakes players out and then leads to the next move up. So still in an okay area for total cryptocurrency market cap, but you would need to start to see this move up very, very, very soon. Like you don't want to see this consolidation go on for another 77 days. It's already been 77 days. Now you want to see in the next 30 days or so, this should start to move up over the course of February, pretty much. If we look at the RSIs, I'm assuming all of these have been reset. There you go. If you go into the weekly time frame and you look at all the coins, there's pretty much nothing, right? Bitcoin dominance, they even measure that. Of course, that's in the strong zone. You have something like Mantra, the strongest real world asset coin out there. Just be careful with Mantra if you are trading it. It's clearly a controlled price chart, right? Which is absolutely wonderful if you're on the right side of the trade, but eventually this will turn. So just to be clear about that, you have XRP as well on the top, BTC on the top, HBAR on the top, some of the top performers over here, and the rest have been smashed all the way back down, now entering into the weak zone or reset, right? If it's still a bull market, when these RSIs reset back into neutral to weak zone, that's typically a zone to gain your entries as opposed to chasing price into overbought territories, right? So that's on your weekly scale. 24-hour won't look any different. In fact, almost everything is in the oversold. Let's see, the 12-hour still in the weak zone, 4-hour still in the weak zone over there. Has anything bounced? Even the 15-minute still remains in the weak zone. So all stochastic RSIs, all RSIs would have been totally reset, right? Similar to what I just showcased over here in terms of the USDT dominance, where we have this big spike up over there in kind of a swing failure pattern, we have almost something similar, not quite yet, but getting there on the Bitcoin dominance, right? Spiking up into this key level. And we need to pay attention to this chart over the coming weeks, because if we do see the total cryptocurrency market running up, this should be very, very, very close to the end, right? Look, I could see it maybe going another 3% higher. That was my absolute worst case scenario, would be coming into the 0.786 level. Otherwise, if ultimately you would want to, if you're treating all of this as a trading range, what do you want to do? Well, you want to buy at the range low and you want to sell at the range high, right? As simple as that. And you have this matching up as well with the downsloping trend line. Okay, 𝗓𝗓𝗔𝗕𝗓 absolutely smashed. To give you a little bit of perspective over here, 𝗓𝗓𝗔𝗕𝗓 is now lower than it was basically before anyone had even heard of what NFTs or DeFi were. That is absolutely crazy. When you put it like that, that is absolutely insane. So that's from Joe. Shout out to Joe for that tweet over there. If you look here at the chart, it's been wrecked, right? Now, I mean, if that's not the bottom for the 𝗓𝗓𝗔𝗕𝗓 chart, I don't know what will be, right? I don't know what will be. This has been heavily hit. Again, the message remains clear. Wait for the break of structure. Do not jump into this until you actually have a full sign of a reversal, which actually reminds me, I don't know if any of you saw that, but if you go through to Eric Trump's Twitter, how crazy is this? Eric Trump's Twitter over here, in my opinion, it's a great time to add ETH. I mean, that's legit. He literally posted that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens over here. I don't know what they have cooking. We know that at least their crypto company has been purchasing a lot of ETH, right? So ETH BTC still wrecked. We'll have a look at the altcoins. For those of you in Whale Room, we've been trying to answer each and every single one of your questions. Straight after the show, I'll go back to the Ask the Team section and I will answer your questions. For the rest of you, I hope you've been enjoying the scalp trades over here. Josh gave a great short trade on XRP. Well done. And then we have also Farouk short trade over there on Bitcoin. So there is volatility. When there's volatility, if you're a low time frame trader trading things like the 15-minute time frame, there's great trades that you can be taking over there, right? Okay, let's have a look at some of the alts very, very, very quickly over here. So Solana is still narrowly holding up. This is a weekly time frame. What you'll notice is in alignment with what I've showcased with all the RSIs over here, it's going to be the same thing. Stochastic RSIs on the weeklies have been fully reset, right? So I'll show you on some of them. Turning back down over here, but it has been reset. You can go to Phantom, for example, which is now called Sonic, but we don't have enough price history to show you the stochastic RSI. Fully reset over there. Reset doesn't necessarily mean you blindly try buy the bottoms. You need to wait for confirmations. This is a confluent indicator that you need to use in alignment with other forms of TA, right? TON also reset, hit some of those key levels over there. So a lot of these majors have reset. You have Casper, right? Casper trying to get back into the trading range over there. So if this does close back in the trading range, you know, that could have been your swing failure pattern, price attempting to break down, swing failing, closing back on the inside. And for many charts, they're going to look like this. And this is actually a very, very strong signal when you see something like this, right? It shows that that bears were unable to continue to break price down, right? So if you get these swing failures at very, very high psychological levels, should I say, like, how can I rephrase this? You know, where the tension is the highest psychologically and they reclaim those levels, that becomes a very, very strong sign. And the tensions are high, right? I know the tensions are high, of course, because if you want to make somebody angry, watch them lose their money, right? That's where the tensions become the highest. You got Sui as well, looking pretty decent. This one's still some work to do. If it gets back above 380, super powerful. That will look like a major, major bottom over there. And if this starts to turn back up, you can see how quickly people will reposition into these coins. So Mantra, just showcasing Mantra to you. That's what the chart looks like. This is one of the strongest coins in the market. We got in very, very, very early. I have moved on from this position. Some of you may be wondering why. Well, I did like over a 10x, guys. I did over a 10x. I think I got in somewhere around here, even earlier than that, somewhere around here. So I did over a 10x on this trade. And I know that this price chart is definitely being controlled over here. You know, nothing moves like this unless they have some sort of massive market maker controlling the price. Eventually that will change. So I moved into other things. All right. Let me know in the comments what else you want to have a look at. This week will be volatile, just to be clear. You can expect that things will continue to chop about. As you can see, if you look on the low time frames at something like Solana, it's fully possible that you do something like this, right? And expect things are going to chop about. It's very unlikely that we just V-shape out of here. Let's have a look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin on the daily as well. Similar over there, same thing, Ethereum. Same thing over here. So putting in a possible lower high, but I do believe that these wicks should be defended. What you can do on almost any of these coins is utilize the wick fill strategy. The wick fill strategy is very, very simple. All you need to do is take your Fibonacci tool, take from the close of the candle to the low of the candle, and basically extend price to the right-hand side and mark off the 50% level. Most of the time, a lot of these coins will revert back into that zone, which would look something like this, right? So on ETH, it would look something like this. This is probably what you're going to see, a move back down to 2,350, some sort of a high low demand come in. Of course, stop losses are going to be placed underneath this wick over here. And then, yes, it may continue to chop, right? It may continue to chop, but probably that becomes the next major low. You form a trading range, reaccumulate, and then we'll take it from there, right? So that's what we're looking at. Let's have a look. Goku's still doing well, holding up over here. A lot of relative strength. I think this is truly building a cult-like community. If this thing didn't capitulate like some of the majors, then it's probably not going to, right? If it hasn't done it already, it's probably not going to. So level to reclaim, we did reclaim it and hold it for a while. Obviously, the whole dump changed that, but let's see, it probably needs to get back above this level again, above 0.023 to bring back some strength over there. So all the information is in the Discord. Deltas, mostly negative, slight positive on Solana, very slight positive on Bitcoin. What this means is the majority of people are still running short trades within the market. And that is it from me, folks. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate each and every single one of you. All the links are below if you want a non-KYC exchange, if you want to join the Discord or the crypto school, it's all below. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day and cheers for now.